Good morning. This is Brett Thompson, Chair of the Nrac and Chief at the Division of Emergency Management. It's Tuesday, January 21st, 2025 at 10 a.m. And I, at this time, calling to order the meeting of the Nevada Resiliency Advisory Committee. Lauren, could you please call the roll?
Brett Thompson.
Present.
Billy Samuels.
Present.
Andy Ancho.
Present.
Jason Andrus. Roy Anderson. Salome Barton.
Present.
Taylor Allison. John Backedall.
Present.
Noah Boyer.
Present.
Lee Cabanis. James Chrisley. Diana Clarkson. Joe Colacursio.
Present.
Colonel Kyle Servolio.
Present.
Bob Denhart. Kelly Echeverria.
Present.
Andrea F.
Present.
Jeannie Freeman.
Here.
Timothy Hill.
Present.
Eric Holt.
Present.
Chris Blake. Carolyn Leverin.
Here.
Desiree Matisse.
Present.
Tennille Pereira. Matthew Peterson. Ken Keener. Misty Robinson.
Present.
Bill Savrin.
Present.
Carrie Underwood.
Present.
D.T. Allen. Adam Miller. Ryan Turner.
Here.
Corey Ross.
Present.
Scott Means. Heather Lafferty.
Present.
Melissa Friend.
Present.
Selby Marks. Kimberly Palma Ortega.
Present.
Samantha Laddick.
Here.
You have quorum.
All right, thank you. Agenda item number 2. Agenda item number 2, public comment. This item is for discussion only. The first period set aside for public comment. If you would like to make public comment by phone, please call in by dialing 669-219-2599. When you are prompted to enter a meeting ID, please enter 202-331-8963 and press pound. When asked to provide a public comment, please press *6 to unmute yourself and *6 again when your comments are complete. In order to give people time to call in, let's start with members on the Zoom platform. Does anyone have a public comment?
Good morning, Matt Peterson. Sorry I was late. I am on and present.
Yeah. Hearing nothing from Zoom, let's move on to the phone. If there's anyone on the phone that would like to make a public comment, please press *6 to unmute yourself and make your public comment. Please press *6 again when your comments are complete. Not hearing any further public comment, I will close agenda item number 2 and move to agenda item number 3. Agenda item number 3, approval of minutes from our May 23rd, 2024 and October 22nd, 2024 meetings. This item is for possible action. Let's take the minutes separately, and we will start with May 23rd, 2024 meeting minutes. Would anyone like to discuss the minutes from May 23rd, 2024? Hearing nothing, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Solomon Barton, motion to approve meetings of May 23rd, 2024, and October 22nd, 2024, as proposed.
Salome, I'll take the motion for May. We'll do October 2nd. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Jeannie Freeman, I'll second.
All right, we have a first by Salome Barton and a second by Jeannie Freeman. Any discussion? All right, let's take a vote. All in favor of approving the minutes from May 23rd, 2024, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. All right, let's move to the meeting minutes from October 22nd, 2024. Would anyone like to discuss the minutes from October 22nd, 2024? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the meeting minutes from October 22nd, 2024.
Corey Ross, I'll move to approve the meeting minutes from October 22nd, 2024.
All right, I have a first from Corey Ross. Do I have a second?
Carrie Underwood, second.
Who was that?
Carrie Underwood.
Carrie Underwood, second.
Thank you, Carrie. All right, we have a first from Corey Ross and a second from Carrie Underwood. Any discussion? All right, all in favor of approving the meeting minutes from October 22nd, 2024, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. I'm going to close agenda item number 3, move to agenda item number 4. Agenda item number 4, Homeland Security Grant Program, HSGP, process for 2025. This item is for discussion only. I will be the presenter. All right, so quick update. So the UAG had a discussion earlier this year about the terminology they were going to use as they rank ordered their Homeland Security grant. And so the terms that they came up with that I'd like to share, and I am going to adopt, or when we, the Nrac, go through the process here in the spring, they adopted 3 terms. They adopted maintain, which is defined as the support of or maintenance of something. Enhance, which is to intensify, increase, or further improve the quality, value, or extent. And new, any new project. I am going to adopt the same terminology as we go through the Homeland Security grant process here with Nrac in the spring. Just to give some clarity here, we used to have 4 terms, which involved sustain. We're going to eliminate that. It was so similar to maintain. And some examples. So maintain and enhance projects. Maintain is basically any investment in maintaining a capability that we already have. Enhancement would be something new, like parts or equipment or a new employee to enhance a capability that already exists. And what we'll do is we'll rank those together. After we've done with that, we will then go through the new capabilities with the remaining dollar amounts. And new would be if it was a completely new program that we hadn't already established or a capability that we already didn't have in existence here. Are there any questions on that? Okay, hearing no questions, I'm going to close agenda item number 4 and move to agenda item number 5. Agenda item number 5, grant status report. This item is for discussion only. So I'm going to turn this over to Suze Coyote, who's going to provide an update on DEM's grant division.
Hi, this is Suze Coyote, DEM, I'm the grants manager here. In an effort to provide a more timely and accurate grant status report, we've developed the report that you received in the meeting attachments. This new version ensures transparency while generating efficiencies to support increasing our customer service. Provides grant year, award amount, dispersed amount, and balance for state projects, DEM, and urban area grants. It's based on completed transactions from the state accounting system. It's readily available information from our fiscal section with near real-time data that is a byproduct of our grants and fiscal process. Takes minimal time to produce this report. And there are many benefits. Our previous version took more than 20 hours of staff time to complete, taking away time from processing over 10 quarterly financial reports. The staff time required to train new staff on the complex report impacted time for training on processing quarterly financial reports. So 2 staff were diverted from processing quarterly financial reports and project change requests. Data was sometimes corrupted by broken links in Excel or human error requiring additional staff time to review and correct. The supervisor would have to take time from approving PCRs and providing technical service and training to make those corrections. Data was pulled from multiple sources: our grants management system, hard copy files for reobligations, Excel trackers, and other Word documents. And the information was only current as of the end of the previous quarter before whatever meeting it was. It was based on grant section data, which is accrual, instead of actual fiscal data, which was based on disbursements. So we had frequent complaints about the data not being timely or accurate. And it was based on something different than a different timeline than what our actual fiscal data provides. So our intent with this new report is to provide more effective and efficient processes to allow staff time to provide you with the best customer service possible. And I'll take any questions that you have about the new report.
Sue's Kelly Echeverria for the record. So in looking at the report, in the balance remaining, is that obligated or a combination?
The balance, so the
In
question
the
was,
yellow, sorry,
I'm sorry,
in the yellow,
that is the balance remaining on the grant. It's obligated funds that have yet to be dispersed.
okay.
Yeah.
Is there an opportunity to add a line item for unobligated funds, like funds available for people to apply for?
Oh, so de-obligated, is there an opportunity to add de-obligated
Available
funds?
funds, yeah.
Yes, I think that we can look into adding de-obligated funds, taking notes here. We can do that.
This is Brett Thompson for the record. So our intent is to establish a process on a quarterly basis on a predictable schedule to say, hey, this is what we have, or we don't have the obligated. Intent is for that to be faster than this report. So hopefully it's in progress. So that's the intent of where we want to go. Standardized processes, predictable, repeatable. You can count on it on a certain date. We're going to say we have this amount available or there's nothing available. And then we'll go through that process each quarter. Is that okay?
Kelly Echeverria for the record. That's great. I'm gonna keep asking until I see it. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
This is going to build that problem right away, right?
Yeah, we have a draft procedure written for that, for the de-obligations, re-obligations. We'll be doing them 3 quarters of the year. At the end of each quarter, we're going to assess what has been de-obligated and what's available for re-obligation at that time.
Any additional questions for Susan?
Jeannie Freeman for the record. A quick question. In the past, during the Nrac meeting where we look at the allocation of funds for the different projects that are brought forward in their application process, it was helpful to be able to see different partners who had previously asked for funds and had not used their funds and had not de-obligated, which we know that the funds are always really tight across the state, and they could have been used for other projects, but then there was challenges with that. Is that something that we're still going to have access to, or is that just create too much work for the team? I think it's just really important to hold people or hold agencies accountable to make sure that when they're asking for the funds that they're not repeat askers, but then they don't spend, and those projects could have gone to the advantage of others who are using those funds, enhancing their projects and so forth.
Correct, for the record. The intent would be to have some data available to you. And Jeannie, I completely understand what you're talking about, the accountability piece. That is kind of the whole intent of this. The trick is, as I implement some adjustments here in the division, we have to identify all of the time that we're spending. It's our most valuable commodity, and where we spend that time right now like Sue's briefed, 20 hours. That's 10 QFRs that we could have provided back, better service. And our intent is to increase our customer service to you. So it's really some choices I'm making as far as where we're investing those times, which is why we've got the consolidated report. To answer your question, yes, the intent is to have some of that data available. It may not be available in the detail of the historic report that took 20 hours to produce, and it will be once a year associated with the vote process.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
Yeah, Brett, it's John back at all. I got two. One, to follow up on Jeannie's. I don't think we need that on a quarterly basis. But when it comes to ranking and evaluating the applications prior to the grant release, I think that's the opportunity to have that report available so that people can make a determination on how they truly want to rank somebody's project if they're consistently wasting the funds. Second comment is there's nothing on here as to what date this report is up to. If that could be available, that would be helpful, printed on the document that says this was effective January 1st or March 31st or whatever you guys determine that date is. If it's 6 months behind, that's a big difference when we only have a 2-year performance period.
Sue's Coyote for the record. John, in the first line in the headings of each one of those sections, like the top line is colored in blue, it says totals as of 12/20. Which is when we prepared, near when we prepared this report for the initial date of this meeting. And then in the green line for NSGP, it's 12/13/24. Fiscal runs these reports like weekly, bi-weekly. So the reporting, the date that its freshness date is going to show up in that first line there for each one of the programs. Do you see that there? Am I not understanding what you were saying?
So John Backetall for the record, I appreciate that. That shows the date that you ran it. Is that the true dollar value that it was reflective of? In the previous reports, it was 6 months behind. So yeah, the report was run, but it wasn't accurate. So if that's an accurate date, that's fantastic. If it's not, I think we should disclose that somewhere.
Yeah, so let me restate. It might not have been clear when I read my notes. So this is based on fiscal data, what's actually been dispersed, not based on the quarterly reporting and when quarterly reporting was processed, right? So when we did quarterly reporting, it would be as of the last quarter that was completed. And that wouldn't necessarily reflect what had actually been dispersed by fiscal. So this report shows accurately what has been dispersed on each grant program as of the date that you see there in that top line for each one of the programs.
So John Backetall again, thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it.
And John, this is Brett Thompson for the record. One of the intents of this was to get more timely and accurate snapshot photos for you guys. Because as you know, we have been reporting 3 to 4 months in arrear, and that just complicates the heck out of it. And so this gets us somewhere closer to the 30 days. Obviously, there's always going to be a little bit of a delay because of the timeline to get materials in for open meeting law. But this is going to be way closer than what we've done historically.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Okay, this time I'm going to close out agenda item number 5 and move to agenda item number. Oh, I'm sorry, Matt.
I'm raising my hand for Lee. He is present now that he's dealt with his first world problems.
To understand, Matt Peterson and Lee Cabanis are now present. Agenda item number 6, DEM's board, commissions, and committees operating rhythm. This is for discussion only. I will be the presenter. So in your packet, you should have a slide that was called quarterly model. So at the division, we've implemented a quarterly predictable, repeatable model for all of the boards, commissions, committees, and working groups that we manage. I only have the kind of the big ones here. And I do have 2 changes that I will walk you through. So the way this model works at the division now is we wanted to provide scheduled events that you can plan around, so you know when the meetings were. I think in the past, we have done this haphazardly, sometimes really close end to when a meeting was necessary. And what I really want to do is be able to give you the time to plan and prepare, and my staff to be able to plan and prepare and count on these meetings. Now, there will be one caveat that I walk through in there, and it's related to second quarter. So the way the model works is, if it says month 1, month 2, or month 3, that is the month of each respective quarter. Month 1 being a January or an April. Week 1, 2, 3, and 4 is not really representative of the week. It's talking about the Tuesday. So it's the first Tuesday, the second Tuesday, the third Tuesday, and we're talking about Tuesdays exclusively, unless it is listed on the sheet, which none of these are anything other than Tuesdays. So for instance, in the first month of the first quarter of the year, we will have Nrac, or we were supposed to have Nrac. In the second month of the first Tuesday of the second month, we'll have Homeland Security and the Hazard Mitigation Working Group. So that's the way the model works. If something is listed in red, it is either occurs one time a year, or it occurs 2 times a year, and then we list the month in which that occurs. Again, that is also going to be on a Tuesday. All these meetings are at 10 a.m. on that Tuesday, so it's predictable and it's repeatable, unless there's a time annotated differently. There are 2 that are in the afternoon. Now, I have one change that I would like to announce that is different than the sheet, and that is really fresh out of the past as of this morning, based on the governor's schedule. So the Homeland Security Commission will no longer be at 10 o'clock on the first Tuesday of the second month of the quarter. It will be at 1300 on the first Tuesday of the second month, and that is predictable all the way through 2025. We verified that with his secretary or his exec. And the Hazard Mitigation Working Group will now bump forward to 10 a.m. on the first Tuesday of the second month of each quarter. Now, the one caveat that I have is related to the Homeland Security grant release. So we built this model anticipating an ideal release, which I don't think any of us have probably seen since the board's been in existence. And so in second quarter, there is the high probability that we will adjust Nrac, and we will adjust the Homeland Security Finance Committee, and we will adjust the Homeland Security Commission based on when the no vote comes out. Otherwise, you can count on this and take it to the bank. We will try to stick to that as best as possible, but it really is going to be driven by that Homeland Security grant release as far as when we do this in second quarter. So I ask for your grace and your forgiveness there, but we acknowledge that right up front. Are there any questions on this model? All right, hearing no questions, I'll close out agenda item number 6, and we're going to move to agenda item number 7. Agenda item number 7 is a report on Formula One. This is for discussion only. I will turn this item over to Clark County Emergency Manager Chief Samuels and Las Vegas Metro Police Department's Deputy Chief of Homeland Security Division Reggie Rader brief the committee on the event.
Morning, Chief. Can you hear me?
We have you, sir.
Perfect. Thank you. The planning for Formula One Grand Prix began immediately following the 2023 race. As stated at the last Nrac meeting, Clark County conducted the debrief and began preparing for 2024. The Las Vegas Grand Prix team made considerable changes in staffing, which improved the preparedness efforts. One of the recommendations was to begin the start time to practice 1 and 3 earlier, so that our people demobilize sooner and prepare for the night of the race, which was appreciated, and they actually did that for us. Most of the physical footprint and rules remain the same: 3.8 miles, 50 laps, and it's a 2-hour max, pending any red flags, except for decreasing the size of the bridge that travels east-west on Flamingo over Kofal. With a limited ability to traverse, many resources had the ability to stage inside the track this year. Fire, police, ambulances, and utility companies were the main partners that were allowed to do that. I will defer to LVPD and Deputy Chief Rader on the bridge impact to vehicle traffic when I finish this report. With this race being a Tier 3 event, we did not receive the federal coordination that we normally would for 1 or 2. However, our federal partners are amazing, and they participated anyways with us. Prior to the race, LaKendall Bell from LVMPD and myself, we had multiple conversations with Union Pacific Railroad asking for 2 things. One was to limit the time rail cars will be traveling through the valley, and to not have any rail cars holding or staged close to the venue. On Friday, November 22nd, we did have a rail car that caught fire, which had new automobiles in its containers. The MAC had a special agent from Union Pacific Railroad who was able to identify what was burning. And our main concern then was if there were electric vehicles. which was quickly denied. We also had a representative from the National Weather Service who was able to build a plume model based upon current conditions and future weather patterns. This information was shared with the Department of Operations Center through the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, along with pictures of what that model would be. We would not have been so successful if we did not plan for this prior. Overall, the event went well, minimal to no distractions or issues. However, just because of that, we cannot let our guard down and become complacent. I do want to express my thanks to Nrac and the Nevada Division of Emergency Management for their support and the activity that occurred down in Clark County. And with that, any questions, I will turn this over to Deputy Chief Reggie Rader from LPD.
All right, thanks, Chief. Reggie Rader, Metro Homeland Security Division. From a public safety perspective, the event could not have gone any better for us. Police, fire, EMS really had no glaring issues. I'll touch upon the bridge. We learned quite a bit from 23 to 24 just because it was the unknown the first year. We kind of understood what traffic was going to look like after that. The bridge did cause a little bit of congestion because it went down significantly in lanes capacity, but we were able to combat that by having additional traffic officers controlling the flow of traffic on the endpoints of that bridge. So we were able to work through that. The first day of track testing caused a little bit of congestion as well. There was some overlap with roads closing and shift workers getting off from all the casino properties, which caused a huge log jam in some of the thoroughfares that were still open. So we had an emergency meeting with the F1 coordinators and planners, and we were able to keep those roads open longer and work with our casino partners on metering how many folks are exiting their parking garage at one particular time, and made the traffic flow much, much better for the remainder of the event. The other thing we learned from the first year to the second year was the organized theft rings that would come with this event, and we were able to combat that with partnering up with some of our federal agencies, as well as utilizing more plainclothes detectives in those areas to find folks that had nefarious intents of entering the location and trying to steal valuable items. And then the other big benefit we had in both years and continue to enjoy is our partnership with the National Guard, and allowing us to enhance our CBRN response for our armor to detect hazardous materials and explosive devices was seamless, and that extra support definitely helped ensure we had a safe and enjoyable event for all of our public. And that's all I have from the police side of the house.
Hey, Chief, this is Billy Samuels. I think it might be nice. Carrie Underwood is on here from SSCTC that can discuss possible SEER rating, what that looks like, and how we come to that, and also the UAS with TFRs that we have going forth, if you so desire, while we have this group on.
Carrie Underwood for the record, Southern Nevada Counterterrorism Center. I think that this group is probably going to have to discuss in future meetings the realities of the Special Event Assessment Rating Program run out of the federal government, the SEER program. What we are finding is a lot of the special events that we host are not getting the SEER rating that either the critical infrastructure, the event sponsors, or even the public safety organizations feel are merited. We've on multiple years running had to do re-adjudication requests to try to get the SEER rating changed in order to get the federal coordinators and part of the planning process with our federal partners. And one of the challenges with that is by the time we've gotten rating changes, the resources that you're wanting, especially as it applies to counter UAS capability, are often not available or already committed because the federal government has limited resources in those areas. So our federal partners locally have scrambled to try to get us as many resources as they can. But it's a little bit of a disadvantage when they don't have necessarily a mandated coordinator with the SEER 1 or 2 event requirement. And so in talking with the Special Event Working Group back at DHS, the bottom line for everyone involved is that there's just limited resources. They talk about their calculation and their program, but the reality that they will acknowledge to you if you have conversations is there's just a limited number of resources and budgeting with an increasing number of special event requests that they're getting. And so candidly, in talking with them, we need to start having conversations here about obtaining those resources that we know we're going to need, because we're not going to get the SEER ratings for a lot of these events. CES did not get the SEER 2 that it's gotten in the past. New Year's Eve still did. Formula One is not going to get a SEER 2 rating. And so we have to now, rather than fight SEER ratings, at some point here in the state, we're going to have to start discussing how we're going to obtain the resources or have the resources to safeguard the events without the SEER rating that we all think we should get.
Carried. Mr. Boyer? Any additional comments?
Sorry, got to figure out a phone. Noah Boyer for the record. I think that it becomes even more apparent now as DJI has dropped the geofencing, which we've used to kind of enforce the TFRs and stuff like that. So with them making that change, it's going to become even more of an issue with our special events, across the state when we look at the UAS threat.
Thank you, sir. Any additional discussion or comments?
Yeah, Carrie Underwood for the record with follow-up to Noah's comment. I think it's incumbent upon all of us to make sure that our elected officials understand there were bills in both Congress and the Senate in the last session on the table to actually legislatively authorize state and locals the ability to start employing counter UAS. Those bills were both basically paused or stopped until the new administration came in. So it's largely a political thing. And so hopefully with all of us, we have our electeds. I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure that they're informed about this particular issue. The federal government will never have the resources to actually effectively implement counter UAS capability across the country, right? And so the biggest issue is not funds. I know we talk a lot on this meeting about money. The biggest issue is actually being legally allowed to pursue counter UAS capability at the state and local level. And so to Noah's point, the threat just became that much more dangerous with the changes with DJI. And so we have to, I think as a board, we have to make sure our leadership here in the state understands the ramifications of not having Congress pass state and local authorization for counter UAS.
Thank you, sir. Any additional comments or discussion? All right, hearing no further discussion, I will close agenda item number 7 and we will move to agenda item number 8. Agenda item number 8, report on election. This item is for discussion only. I'll turn this item over to Mr. Mark Wolashin, Deputy Secretary for Elections, to brief the committee on the election. Mark?
Good morning. Thank you. My name is Mark Volashin. I'm the Deputy Secretary of State for Elections for the record. This is an executive overview of the initial stages of our post-election cycle review. We have begun our analysis of the 2024 election cycles, include already detailed discussions, even just a few weeks ago, including state, county, and city election officials. That assessment will continue for some time with separate conversations with various stakeholders regarding a number of different topics, but already a few trends have emerged that I would like to provide for you today. Through the lens of emergency management, and I want to start with this, the 2024 election cycle was a success, in part because of the close partnerships and increased communications over the last 16 plus months. Yes, there were no major incidents, but our overall planning and preparations greatly exceeded what we've seen and done in previous election cycles, which helped create a sense of awareness regarding the election cycle. So while we were happy that no major incidents occurred, of course, we were prepared to address everything from simple issues to complex, multifaceted challenges as a state and not as individual entities working in silos. The artifacts that were created during this election cycle will also be very useful and help looking to future election cycles to ensure a high level of readiness for the 26 and 28 election cycles that we're already preparing for. Some key points that I'd like to highlight, starting off with the collaboration between federal, state, and local agencies. Again, excellent job there across the state. and those other stakeholders. The primary vehicle, of course, for that collaboration was through the Elections Integrity Task Force. We saw more participation this election cycle than in previous years, which is great. We began in early 2023 and continued throughout the election cycle, following an in-person training session and virtual check-ins prior to the start of early voting for each of the 3 elections that occurred this last year. There was also excellent involvement by the leadership at all levels. That encouraged the prioritization of these discussions, which led to the development of a foundational level of understanding across agencies and stakeholders, which was very useful. Again, this wasn't just focused purely on November 5th, right? The military and overseas deadline to send ballots was actually September 20th. So therefore, again, extending that out a little bit allowed all of us to have a greater awareness during those periods of times when the election cycle was actually underway. From a cybersecurity standpoint, again, with the close collaboration that we had with OCIO and our federal partners also that relationship continued to mature and develop. They supported the implementation of the new statewide system, as well as addressing security threats that emerged during the election cycle. We recognize, of course, that it's cyber threat is persistent and developing. It will continue in between election cycles and only get more complicated and require more resources to address to ensure the integrity of our process. But we work hand in hand across, again, all the stakeholders to protect Nevadans' data along with the integrity of the election. From a physical security standpoint, again, there was some merit and utility in the conduct of DHS assessments, the physical security assessments at the county and state levels. In part, I think some of the county election officials and really wanted to have that happen, but just because of the timing with the presidential preference primary back in February, then a June election, then in November, in many cases during the 24 calendar year, they were unable to get those assessments or act on them. So we're certainly planning on improving that and trying to increase the number of physical security assessments during the off cycle throughout calendar year 25. And then finally, from a contingency planning standpoint, it was satisfactory, but the goal, of course, as always, is to improve. There's more support available to the counties now, and frankly, more interest and time to act on those support opportunities. The clerks, even in our discussion earlier, just in December, again, across the board, much more open to and exploring opportunities ranging from tabletop exercises with the county emergency managers, through the physical and cybersecurity assessments that can be conducted by the Department of Homeland Security. And the goal is to align those events with the county budget timelines in order to assure appropriate remediation of any issues that are identified well in advance of the 2026 election cycle. That, as a general reminder, is now less than 12 months away from candidate filing. But that's all I have for right now, but I am available for questions.
Backadall?
Hey, Mark, it's John Backadall for the record. Thanks for all your support to Carson City. Are we looking to eliminate that third election of the presidential preference primary in any way, shape, or form, since it costs our community $1 million and it does nothing?
Mark Flushing for the record. Excellent question, Mr. Backadall. I will say, without getting myself into any trouble, that is very much a policy discussion, of which I will not likely be involved, but there may well be some discussions that occur in the building next to us in the coming months, starting in February. If there are discussions about the possibility of the presidential preference primary, excuse my alliteration, going away, I'll be certainly including you and Clerk Scott Hohen in those conversations, so that at least flagging them for your awareness. But I haven't heard any discussion about that just yet.
Thank you. Yes, it's John again. If any bills pop up, we would love to go testify to help do away with that effort.
Noted.
Underwood?
Carrie Underwood for the record. Mark, just want to say thank you very much for your leading the coordination efforts and getting folks involved and making sure that we were communicating in advance of the actual cycle. Would like to know if, or would just ask if we can possibly have a discussion even more in advance of the next one about the things that you identified that worked well, the things where we had gaps still, so that we can start building towards those things early in the process. Because as you said, the election cycle pretty much never stops. And now is our time to start putting those things into place if there were any gaps, I and my colleague Desiree up at the NTAC can start working to try to fill those as far as information sharing.
It's an excellent point, Mr. Underwood. Mark Voloshin for the record. And yes, certainly between our Chief Deputy, Mr. Gabriel DeCara, Aaron Houston, our Securities Administrator, and I have already started to talk about exactly that, figuring out when we can talk, with the group, pulling in the EITF together to make sure that we're prepared. Don't want it to be too early because I know some of y'all are gonna, wouldn't want to see an email invite from us, later on in the next 6 months. But certainly trying to time that right so that staff positions, are solidified maybe prior to the holidays, those sorts of things, and we can get updates and start talking from a big picture standpoint well in advance. Because you're absolutely right. The discussions and the challenges are not simple, rarely not complex, and frankly need as much time as possible to be addressed properly across the state, federal, and local partners. But absolutely, we'll be in touch very soon.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for Mark? All right, hearing none, I'm going to close item number 8, and we will move to agenda item number 9. Agenda item number 9, emergency plans, important dates, progress, and status. This item is for discussion only.
Hi, Sherry Grinan with Nevada Division of Emergency Management Planning Program for the record. As Lauren's getting the slides up running, this is a report on the industry plan submission program. We've had a couple deadlines passed since the last time that we have reported out. And so you'll see that the utilities and jurisdictional emergency operation plans were due on December 31st with a school legislative report due on January 1st. Thanks, Lauren. Yep, there we go, and we can move past that. Easy peasy, the jurisdictions have all submitted their emergency operation plans with 18 cities and 17 counties submitting. One city did submit late, but it has been received. Next. Utilities were at 65% of plans received. That is actually pretty decent and along the lines with utilities. The governing authorities provide a list to us by June 30th, and we send out a notification to all utilities requesting the emergency operation plans and vulnerability assessment or a certificate of review for those items. As you'll see, drinking water has come in, 13 not submitted, electric, 8 not submitted. We've received all natural gas, wastewater or water pollution control, 27 not submitted, and the water systems, that means it's a combined emergency operation plan for both drinking water and water pollution control. Apologies for drinking water and wastewater being apart, but in a trench, they can't be next to each other either. So moving on to the school plans review. This is a legislative report that we provide. We are in the middle of a 5-year cycle, auditing about 20% of plans randomly. And so we're on year 3 of 5. So we chose 50 out of 284 plans selected. That included 4 district plans, 21 public charter schools, and 22 private schools. There were 11 reviewers made up of our division, Nevada Department of Education, and the State Public Charter School Authority as well. It's a 51-question survey based off of Nevada revised statute concerning plans. And so it's yes, no questions to take out as much bias as possible. Providing the average concurrence over the past 3 years, you'll see that it's pretty close. Overall, we've had an improvement in private schools, and there have been no new tools provided to the schools at this point. There was a model plan that was worked between the Nevada Division of Emergency Management, NDE, as well as Public Health and Department of Public Safety working group. And so that has not been officially released by NDE at this point, along with an NRS checklist to provide to them so that when they do submit plans, they do know what they need to have required. NDE has had a turnover in staffing, and so they're just waiting for their supervisors and directors to get on board before they provide those tools with an anticipated date that they'll be out before the next school year. Those will help bring those numbers up, we believe. And we've also provided technical assistance to several schools, particularly in the private school and public charter area, between NDE and DEM, going out and working with them to ensure that their plans get up to date and follow NRS concurrence. Highlighting the top concurrence and lowest concurrence areas. Once again, the schools, their focus areas, they're really good at ensuring that response is in their plans. So making sure that the schools are secure. There are plans for evacuation. They're doing their business in the plans with the lockdowns. And so we're seeing high levels of that, which is what we want to see. And then going to the 3 lowest areas of concurrence. These have to do more with recovery phases, dealing with populations that are at risk and ensuring that communities like the LGBTQ community, those that are in foster care and or unhoused or homelessness are being included and considered in recovery plans and efforts. Moving forward, the conclusions from the report this year. We have had continued collaboration and the resource improvements, which will be released before the next school year. We've continued to work with them for the school safety conference coordination, and we have an appointed member to the committee on statewide school safety. Areas of improvement and achievements, the school plans review working group completed all the reviews within a timeline reduction of 50% compared to last year. And their consistent findings prioritize the improvement projects to enhance those technical assistance calls we do with these schools. School audit plans begin to identify strengths in response actions and areas of improvement in recovery actions concerning pupils with access and functional needs, behavioral health concerns, and pupils with LGBTQ and homelessness communities. That is the end of the report. I want to say thank you to Reno Graves, our intern, Skillbridge intern, Brian Sommer, who prepared the legislative report this year, and Ryan Davidson, who has taken over the statutory plan program and will be reporting out to you with next year's findings. Pending any questions, this is the end of the report.
So, Borough Council, for the record, I just want to publicly thank you guys for the effort that you have put into this. It's been tremendous. And I think the response that we saw is a direct result of the effort you guys put in. So thank you for that. Chief Samuels.
Thank you. My only question is, I know towards the end of the year, you were sending a lot of emails to the EMs to try to help you get that report complete. What would really help us is when I see half of those wastewaters, drinking water, and just other utilities, I don't know if they're in my jurisdiction or not. So if you can identify that it's in Clark County, City of Las Vegas, I just really don't know. Like when I see Tropicana flood, I don't know if that's me or if that's up north. So if we could, that we might be able to help you guys out a little bit better moving forward.
Absolutely, Chief. And utilities is our goal to shore up this year. We have a focus on streamlining those efforts. And that was one of the things that we found as well, was ensuring we knew who were the authorities for each of those utilities. Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments for Sherry?
Sally Barton for the record. My apologies. Sherry, quick question. Is it possible when you send out the reminders for the utilities department to include emergency management? Because we try to ensure that they are on top of it, on what is required to be submitted, because there are times somebody would not respond accordingly, or they miss it because they don't understand why they're getting it due to, personnel changes and everything. If you can include EM, that would be wonderful. So we can make sure that everything is turned in accurately and timely.
Absolutely. We'll ensure to CC all of the emergency managers when the annual notifications go out. Thank you.
Any additional questions or comments? All right, there ain't no further discussion. I'll close agenda item number 9 and we will move to agenda item number 10. Agenda item number 10, report on emergency management assistance compact support to Hurricane Helene. This item is for discussion only. I'll turn it over to Heather Lafferty, who is going to discuss her experiences providing access and functional needs support during Hurricane Helene. Heather?
Thank you. This is Heather Lafferty, for the record, Chief Resilience Officer for Nevada Division of Emergency Management. Lauren, can you see the screen okay?
Yes, Heather, we can see.
Thank you, Lauren. I've been asked to provide a brief high-level overview of our deployment for the Access and Functional Need Coordinator role in Hurricane Helene. I was deployed on October 11th directly to the North Carolina State Emergency Operations Center, and the length of deployment was 16 days. I want to briefly discuss roles and responsibilities because I know we have a few on here who might not be as familiar with what an Access and Functional Needs Coordinator role is in a large-scale disaster. On the screen, you're seeing the guidance and my roles and responsibilities within NDEM, or our division, during our gray sky roles as the AFN officer, which generally lies in command in general. In a deployment like this, there are multiple levels you can be sent to help coordinate and support. We facilitated using the mutual aid state to state to get an Access and Functional Needs Coordinator from Virginia directly to a shelter to support a local jurisdiction where that congregate shelter was seeing significant gaps and being overwhelmed with their capability to maintain the health and independence of the clients in that shelter. And so it can be very localized, the effort of the Access and Functional Needs Coordinator. I was specifically requested into the Emergency Operations Center at State EOC, specifically within the Human Services branch, to help shore up some of the gaps they were seeing in this Hurricane Helene. And so just as a general overview of the roles and responsibilities and kind of where I was situated for this event, I do want to get on to the facts on the ground when I arrived on October 11th, so you have a better understanding of the scope of where my focus started in coordination efforts. We had, at the time, 16 shelters open with a total of 622 occupants and 86 pets. Something to keep in mind, throughout this event, we had a total of about 74 shelters opened overall. But we still have 16 shelters open when I arrive about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks into this event. Our lifeline is still red for the state with power outages. It is also still red for transportation. We had currently on the day I arrived, 645 roads remained closed, 3 interstates, and a lot of those roads were not just closed, they were gone. Our water systems were red and completely inoperable across multiple jurisdictions. Something I really want us to keep in mind, though, when we're talking about lifelines is even though for food and hydration and sheltering lifeline, it might be yellow for the state overall, in several of these local jurisdictions in the mountains of Western North Carolina, all lifelines are still red for them specifically. So that's something to keep in mind, because a lot of our local jurisdictions at this point are still, their fiber lines are gone, their radio towers, cell towers, power, water, across the board, really. And so I just wanted to give you a picture of what it was like on the ground on my arrival on October 11th. In the Health and Human Services branch, one of the things they realized very early when they were starting to see some of these big gaps in our ability to help the local jurisdictions maintain their health and independence in their sheltering operations and across the lifelines was that they needed a disability stakeholder call. Someone in Health and Human Services had tried to stand that up. One of the challenges, though, is they didn't have that history like we do here, where we're using our Nevada Access and Functional Needs Disaster Coalition in every activation we exercise with them. And so they didn't have a lot of those policies and procedures. They were missing some of the key stakeholders in North Carolina disability. And one of the cascading impacts of that is we start to see real misinformation and disinformation being spread amongst the North Carolina disability community in particular. And one of the bigger impacts of that is a lot of the key players in disability in North Carolina are passing along some of this misinformation, and they're bypassing emergency operations and their local emergency managers, and they're going directly to their contacts at the White House, at the federal level, when a lot of the resources that they needed were actually available. They just weren't being included in that coordination. So really helping them target that and get that up and functional so it was operating in the best way to support North Carolina operations was kind of the first big task. The real reason the bat signal from North Carolina went out originally is as this incident went on and we see those lifelines stay yellow or red, or again, locally red across the board, we start to see huge impacts to the actual ability of the public to maintain their health. And so really tackling how do we approach all of the people living independently in the community who necessarily weren't part of the initial evacuation, but now they've been without power for 2 weeks. They haven't been able to flush their toilets. They've been trapped in their apartments because the elevators don't work, and really coordinating with our volunteers and our first responders and standing up a task force to identify where they were before the disaster happened, where we should be focusing our attention, and helping local emergency managers get that task force deployed was one of the bigger pieces of that 16-day deployment. One of the things I thought it was important to kind of highlight is, especially in a large-scale disaster like this, the access, actual on-site assessment of accessibility. A lot of these disaster recovery centers, evacuation centers, community care centers, and shelters are points of distributions that were set up in North Carolina, and our feeding stations. They were initially set up very accessible, and they were very focused on making sure we had, accessible showering and restrooms. But as humans start to use environments, and as, this becomes longer and larger, a lot of that starts to go away. And so visiting and prioritizing where we're seeing the biggest gaps so that me and any of the other access and functional needs coordinators at the local level can get physically on site, helping them work through some of these challenges was a big part of this deployment, and really, really coordinating accessibility for all of the different points where operations is touching the public. Some of the other high-level coordination activities of the Access and Functional Needs Officer were really future operations planning. North Carolina had just started their long-term feeding planning and what that was going to look like, particularly for their access and functional needs and disability community. We still have ongoing and intense sheltering operations, but planning for transition was beginning, and really helping them think about long-term transitioning and what that support might look like, particularly for the population I was there to serve. One of the other big things we really had to focus on and work with our local emergency managers on, and they really needed specific support at the state level, was when you get individual assistance, there are a lot of programs that get turned on, like DSNAP or Disaster Supplemental Nutritional Assistance. And a lot of these are regulated extremely heavily. So like DSNAP, for instance, you have 7 days to register everyone, they can only open it for 7 days by law, and everyone has to be registered within that 7 days. And so getting that messaging out through all of the whisper networks within the disability community in multiple languages, so that we can register 1 million people who need immediate food assistance within 7 days, was an all of government coordination effort. And they had me specifically targeting in a lot of my efforts there to help make sure we're getting all of the different communities in North Carolina, especially our rural and frontier communities that were impacted, to understand how that process is going to look. And particularly for our rural and frontier communities, we don't have internet, it's still down. A lot of this is digital. And so finding accessible iPads and things that we could get deployed, so to support when DSNAP was opened and be ready for that. So these are some of the high level coordination efforts we were supporting in my role as Access and Functional Needs Coordinator. Some of the key takeaways, one of our priorities here in the Division of Emergency Management is going to be mass care. And when we talk about supporting mass care and increasing our capability here in Nevada, that's not just increasing our capability to support actual congregate and non-congregate sheltering and coordination for that piece with our local emergency managers, but having some of those necessary kind of intangible pieces developed and ready to support the entire mass care capability. So as an example, the state vow was very, very, very important to my ability to meet the demands and gaps that were arising in my position as Access and Functional Needs Coordinator. And I used the state vow in North Carolina to support the local jurisdictions in various ways, but we would get very, very like intimate and focused in on one specific shelter. So they were helping coordinate maybe building a ramp for one of our rural and frontier communities that didn't have a building that was left standing that was accessible to use for sheltering, or the vow would come up very high level and help me coordinate getting durable medical equipment, because we started to see huge gaps in our ability to provide durable medical equipment, finding national partners and warehouses and getting that piece coordinated. And then one of the other big pieces to support mass care that we're going to have to think about is the mass teams or the multi-agency shelter transition teams. That's not something in Nevada we've had to really stand up or use a lot of that capability here. And so I helped support standing the mass teams up and really making sure at the state level, everyone is organized and ready to deploy resources in an organized way where we're not overburdening or visiting our impacted survivors multiple times. So the idea is we get everybody on the same page, all the resources together, and then we're visiting the shelters and the non-congregate and the clients as one team to help them transition out of sheltering and support the local jurisdictions. I have, North Carolina did allow me to stay on the mass teams. So we meet every morning, every day at 4 a.m. And I have been on that since October, helping get a better understanding of what is and isn't working in a large scale disaster like this with North Carolina, so that as we start to develop this capability more internally, I have a better understanding of how to support that. And then I did want to just highlight that at the Colorado Access and Functional Needs Conference in April, they have invited Nevada to discuss this deployment. And one of the key focuses of that conference will be evacuation and transportation. And I know many of us are focused on the Tahoe Basin evacuation. And this will be specifically around access and functional needs, evacuation and transportation. And so if you're interested in that, let me know, and I'm happy to share that information and resource with you. And that is the end of this presentation for me. If we have any questions, and Lauren, you could stop sharing for me. Thank you.
Any questions, Ms. Heather? All right, thank you, Heather. I appreciate you sharing your experience, and now I understand why I get emails from you at 5 in the morning. Hearing no further discussion, I'll close out item number 10 and move to agenda item number 11. Agenda item number 11. This will be a report on the 2024 Nevada Task Force 1 deployments. This item is for discussion only. I'll turn this item over to Kenyon Levitt to discuss the Nevada Task Force 1 deployments. Kenyon?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Very good. Thanks for this opportunity to give a quick update on what Nevada Task Force 1 did during 2024. Nevada Urban Search and Rescue Task Force 1 was activated 4 times in 2024. The first activation was for the avalanche at Lee's Canyon on Mount Charleston on February 5th. Nevada Task Force 1 was able to respond to 8 members, a search team manager, 5 live find K9 teams, and 2 live find K9 teams that were in the training process. The teams were able to respond, but because of the conditions in nightfall, we're not able to do any searches. On February 6th, Mount Charleston requested 2 human remain K9 teams, which were able to respond. However, upon arrival, all personnel were accounted for and they were returned to the valley. Even though we were unable to assist in any searches, this was a fantastic opportunity for us to see where we would like to train for future calls of this kind. Our next deployment was September 27th, 2024. Nevada Task Force 1 was activated as a Type 3 team to respond to North Carolina to assist in the search and rescue operations caused by Hurricane Helene. Our initial deployment was for 35 personnel with 10 support drivers and 1 mechanic. At the time of the activation, our destination was FEMA Region 4. We estimated it would take us approximately 33 straight hours of driving to arrive. Other than a small hiccup of getting our mechanic out the door, the trip went as planned until we got closer to the hurricane, where the hurricane had been. Multiple road closures and diversions were experienced, but with a few minor adjustments, the team was able to arrive to their assigned area ahead of schedule. The team was stationed in Knoxville, Tennessee, overnight, then sent to Jonesboro, Tennessee to assist in search and rescue activities. Search activities consist of searching the debris piles that were along the riverbanks. Nevada Task Force 1 used 2 boat teams to assist in these searches. Multiple teams were used to walk the shoreline, searching the piles from the land side. Teams used human remain dogs and live find dogs as they searched the debris piles. Nevada Task Force 1 worked in Jonesboro for 7 days, which made our deployment time at 10 days. Our deployments are 14 days, so that only left us with 4 days left in our initial deployment. At this time, FEMA branch asked if we would be willing to extend our time, which we said we would. But due to some commitments at home, we had to replace 7 of our team members. While we're en route to the airport, FEMA branch called and requested that we not only extend our deployment, but expand our team from a Type 3 to a Type 1, which took us from 35 personnel to 70 personnel. And not only expand our team, but transfer from Hurricane Helene to Hurricane Milton and move from Tennessee to Florida. Also, on October 2nd, we were able to send a single resource HRD team to Asheville, North Carolina. This team was busy and able to locate a number of victims in the Asheville area. The team worked in Asheville for 16 days before being demobilized and returned home. On October 8th, that's when the request for bumping our team up to a Type 1 came in. We were able to roster the additional personnel and able to make flight arrangements to fly those people to Atlanta, Georgia, where they rented minivans and SUVs and drove from Atlanta to Camp Blanding in Stark, Florida. Hurricane Milton made landfall on October 9th as a Category 3 hurricane. Nevada Task Force 1 was assigned to complete welfare checks and building assessments. In total, Nevada Task Force 1 was able to document over 8,000 structures in the time they were in Florida. With all deployments, there are days that were spent waiting for the next assignment. This time was spent attending refresher training, rehabbing the equipment cache, and deconning the used equipment. While in Tennessee, it was Nevada Task Force 1 job to set up a decon line for all personnel, vehicles, boats, K-9 teams, and basically everyone that was set out on the searches. On October 16th, Nevada Task Force 1 was transferred back to Hurricane Helene, but after traveling back to North Carolina, it was determined that they were no longer needed and were demobilized on October 18th. We were able to fly 51 of the 81 personnel we had deployed home on October 18th and 19th. The additional 20 personnel drove the cache home over the next 5 days. For those that were deployed on the first deployment, they ended up with a 22-day deployment. Those that drove trucks out and back ended up with a 27-day deployment. Our next deployment was on October 24th when Clark County Fire Department responded to a structure fire in a 3-story single-family residence. Because of the extent of the fire, there was a complete collapse of the roof and 3rd story into the 2nd story, which extended into the ground floor. There are reports of 4 individuals that were missing. Clark County Fire requested that Nevada Task Force 1 respond a K-9 team to see if we could assist in finding the 4 victims. At the time of the request, we had no HRD teams in the state. They were all out of state, either doing training or working. The request was then made for Nevada Task Force 1 to respond to structural specialists to the scene to evaluate the safety of the building and determine any shoring that might be needed to take place to be able to search and recover the victims. Nevada Task Force 1 was able to send 1 structural specialist directly to the scene. The request was then made for rescue specialists to assist in shoring up the building. As this was a local deployment, the majority of our task force personnel are employed by local fire departments throughout the valley and are stationed at the TRT stations at those different departments. It was suggested that the IC request all the TRT teams in the valley to assist with the body recovery effort. Because of the way the building collapsed, it was not feasible to shore up the walls. It was determined that the best and safest way to make entry was to build a box that could be pushed forward as the debris was removed and would protect those working inside. Prior to starting the debris removal, 3 of the 4 victims were located tangled in the collapsed debris, and the 4th was located when the victims were removed. Nevada Task Force 1 was able to give continued building evaluation and recommendations on the size and makeup of the box to be constructed. All 4 victims were located and removed in a timely and respectful manner. This activation was beneficial to all the departments in the valley to see what Nevada Task Force 1 has that they can request if needed. That is my report.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any questions for Kenyon? All right, I appreciate your report. If there are no further questions, I'll close out agenda item number 11 and we will move to agenda item number 12. Agenda item number 12, public comment. This item is for discussion only. This is the second period set aside for public comment. If you'd like to make public comment by phone, please call in by dialing 669-219-2599. When you're prompted to enter a meeting ID, please enter 202-331-8963 and press pound. When asked to provide public comment, please press *6 to unmute yourself and *6 again when your comments are complete. In order to give people the time to call in, let's start with members on the Zoom platform. Do we have any public comment on the Zoom platform?
You have it first.
Is Heather?
Heather Lafferty for the record. I did want to just acknowledge and say thank you to the Nevada Governor's Council on Developmental Disabilities, who is a member of this commission. They were contacted by the State Centers for Independent Living in California, who were in need to support some of the disabilities partners impacted by the LA wildfires. And through our coordination efforts, they reached out to us as a connector. We were able to connect them with St. Jude's Ranch, who was able to get 600 hygiene kits to the executive director, Catherine Nielsen, and she drove them herself to the Centers for Independent Living this weekend. And so we did just want to acknowledge and say thank you for her continued support, not only of Nrac, but also of the Nevada Division of Emergency Management. End of comment. Thank you.
Mr. Denhart.
Bob Denhart for the record. I just wanted to note that I was able to join the meeting in progress, and I apologize for being late.
All right, thank you, sir. Any additional on Zoom? All right, this is Brett Thompson for the record. I do want to add, just as a reminder, that in accordance with the meeting model that I had presented, second quarter is coming up. Homeland Security, Finance, and Nrac will likely be adjusted based on the release of the Homeland Security NOPO. All right, let's move to the phone. If there's anyone on the phone that would like to make public comment, please press *6 to unmute yourself, make your public comment. Plus, please press *6 again when your comments are complete.
Chief, I believe Heather Baldwin had a question.
Heather Baldwin? All right, hearing nothing. Ms. Heather Baldwin. All right, not hearing Heather. I'm going to close item number 12.
I'm sorry. This is Heather Baldwin. I was double muted. Sorry. I just wanted to apologize. I'm also late. I just wanted to let you know I'm representing the Department of Energy if you're taking the attendance.
All right, thank you, ma'am. Any further public comment on the phone? All right, I'll close agenda item number 12 and move to agenda item number 13. Agenda item number 13, adjournment. This item is for discussion and possible action. I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Kelly Echeverria, I motion to adjourn.
I have a first from Kelly Echeverria. Do I have a second?
This is Lee Cabinets, second.
I have a second from Lee Cabinets. Let's take a vote. All in favor of adjourning this meeting, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. The meeting is now ended. Thank you.